Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Ms. Baker. Ms. Baker is absent. Mr. Tuma. Mr. Tuma is absent at the moment. Mr. Brady.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
There is a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that Councilman Miller is in attendance.
Welcome, Mr. Miller, as always, or seemingly always. Any public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
Thank you. In your package, you have the minutes of the September 17th meeting. If they're in order, I'll accept the motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. 2019-0228.
Resolution number 2019-0228, making an award on requisition number 45119 to Trinity Services Group in the amount not to exceed $18,612,898.75 for jail kitchen food services.
Who do we have from the sheriff's office? The sheriff?
Mr. Gallagher,
Good morning. Good seeing you, sir.
council members, good morning to you all.
There we go. I'm here this morning going to be introducing you to the folks from Trinity Food Services. I'm aware that this contract has been being negotiated even prior to my arrival as sheriff. Talking with there's a lot of people besides Chief Carney that have been working behind the scenes. That would like to recognize Leslie White, Donna Khalil from our fiscal department, Alexa Beeler from the law department. They've all played a significant role in putting this contract together. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from Donna about the Trinity Food Service people, as well as from Director Gibson, who has dealt with them in some of the prior facilities that she's worked in. Unfortunately, I have not seen the contract, but I've heard a lot of good things, and I think that Trinity's going to come in and hopefully turn our food service operation around in the jail, as far as giving good meals to the people that we're charged with caring for. Meals for those with certain religious restrictions and things of that nature. So rather than me continuing to go on, I'd like to defer at this time to Donna Khalil, if I may.
Okay, sure.
Maybe answer some more of your questions about
And
the contract.
to be clear, this process started well before you were placed,
Yes, sir.
so we all understand that.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you.
Can I
Yes,
ask
sir.
an outreach question?
Yes, sir.
I know that we currently put out all these purchases for food for the jail, that they come before the Board of Control every week. Is this contract going to replace that, and Trinity is going to do all the food acquisition, or are we going to continue to do the food acquisition and Trinity is just going to run the process of serving it?
I believe, from what I know, I'm sure Don will correct me if I'm wrong, that Trinity will be doing the ordering and handling the job of bringing food into the
whole
correction
thing?
center.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
Fine. Okay.
Thank you.
Morning, Donna.
Good morning, County Council members. Donna Khalil, Sheriff's Fiscal Manager. As you stated, we started this process back in April, about 7 months ago, did the whole RFP process, held a pre-bid conference. We had 3 vendors come into that conference, which was Summit, Aramark, and Trinity. They all got tours of the jail kitchen, so they had a very good idea exactly what they were working with. Then they went on and they got tours of Bedford and Euclid also. We did they submitted all their proposals, and we had several of us doing the grading and the scoring. People familiar with the kitchen, like the sergeant who's in charge of the jail kitchen currently. Administrator Gibson was part of the scoring, myself, Leslie White. There was a lot of us doing the scoring. Brandy was part of that. And we did individual scoring, and then we did group scoring. And by the time it was all said and done, we felt Trinity, they had the best score to begin with, and then we also felt with their expertise that they would be the awarded vendor. We made several phone calls to their references, but we also then went and Googled other places, and we made phone calls to other places where Trinity is no longer there. We did get a little bit of negative feedback, but I would say most of the feedback we got was quite positive, and a lot of it was because a lot of these jails just decided to go back to the handling their own food service. But it wasn't like there was anything really. There was nothing we found that was glaring, in terms of negativity. So again, but if I will have Steve Slay from Trinity come up, and he can answer any questions you may have, or any questions about. I had talked to Councilwoman Conwell about some ideas she has, so I'm going to have Steve come up and answer questions. I did want to also mention that part of this contract, up front, $450,000 from Trinity. It's going to get put into a capital fund, and we're going to be using that over the years to buy like new equipment in the kitchen and things like that. So that's all part of the contract also. And then there's a few cents built into each meal for a maintenance fund to maintain all the equipment in the kitchen. Now, no maintenance will get done without approval of the county. So anything they want to do or any money they want to spend for capital or maintenance has to go through us, and we have to approve it. I'm trying to think what else did I want to cover. I think that was it for now, but yes, Trinity also will be buying all the food. Now, these next couple of months, because we did the fourth quarter purchases, we're using our food, and they're going to come in and begin the transition. But starting in January, they will be using their vendors and purchasing the food. However, any vendors they use the county will have to approve it, especially if they want to make a vendor change. If they want to change vendors, then it will have to come through us, and we'll have to approve the vendor change.
Okay. And
So a couple of follow-up questions on that. So will we have to continue to approve individual purchases?
For the food?
Yes.
No.
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 Okay. And do we have an estimate of what the total amount is we're spending for the food operation now, and how our cost is going to compare, whether it's more money or less money doing the contract?
I can tell you the food costs about $2 million a year. That's the food. Now, we are still going to keep our cooks, our county cooks. There's 14 of them right now, approved positions. I think there's 11. We have a couple of vacancies, but they will stay. So, and we're also going to continue to use trustees. So in terms of, but I will say that now this contract annually is about 3.5 a year, and then I think it increases a little bit each year. So in that way, the cost will go up. However, and I don't have I don't have a number, but I can get that for you. We spend a lot of money on maintenance in that kitchen. That equipment is always breaking, always going down. I can get you an annual cost on that. I mean, I don't know if I can say it's going to be a wash, but I can get you numbers on comparing the 3.5 to what we're spending now. But in terms of labor, there's not going to be any change. We are keeping our labor, our county labor. I will say this also, though, that we do put several of our county like sergeants and things like that dedicated to the kitchen, which we will no longer really need that. There might be a correction officer in there for safety reasons, but we'll be able to pull some of our sergeants that are working in the kitchen right now and pull them back a little bit and use them elsewhere in the kitchen. I mean, use them elsewhere in the jail.
Okay.
If that helps.
Okay, and I heard in there, the trustee inmates will still be working in the kitchen. The county employees that we have in there now stay.
Absolutely.
Okay, and the per meal is what, basically?
The cost per meal?
Is there a breakdown?
Yes. Steve, you want to come up? Because there is a variance when it comes to kosher meals.
I would imagine. I'll tell you what, you can get Donna, don't dig. You can get that to us, not a big issue. Now, to be clear, you were on the scoring committee?
Correct.
And were you aware of my request to Mrs. Carney to, when the 3 vendors were in, to self-report any issues? I heard, she told me that was not asked, and that was my specific ask. She says, is there anything you want asked? And I said, I want all 3 to self-report. And then after the fact, she told me that she did not do that, but then that they researched the companies after the fact. They didn't ask them to self-report.
No, I was not aware of that.
Okay, so I asked one thing and I didn't get it, and I felt as though I was back at home for some odd reason. And the reason I asked that, and sir, your name is?
Steve Slay, I'm with Trinity Regional VP of Sales.
Did anybody ask you from the county to self-report any issues that you might have?
I'm not, self-report, what does that mean?
Tell on yourself. What do you got bad in your past, knowing full well that in business, everybody's going to have some bad things?
Sometimes we're asked to submit terminated contracts in our proposals. I don't recall if we had to do that on this one.
That wasn't even part of it?
We can furnish that. I mean, it's.
And believe me, this is not your issue, trust me. But
If I can say this though, after the contract was awarded, then if I'm not mistaken, and Leslie can correct me, was it Chief Carney did say, Google the company and find out anything you can, and if there's anything bad or glaring, do a little research. And that's when Leslie had made some phone calls and did some research. And if you want to talk about that.
Leslie, your name is?
Leslie White.
Leslie, and see, my concern, here's where we're going here is our staff did a cursory review and we came up with a few things that are concerning to us that we don't have answers to, and they're just reports. So we take them for what they are. We don't know if they're truth or they're not, but they were reported. And it was a surprise to us to find these. Did you find any of the issues in Lansing, Michigan? Mm-hmm. You
Definitely.
did? And you
Yes.
didn't find that disconcerting?
Well, I did, and so that was one of the reference checks. I spoke with Kevin Weisenborn, who was part of the procurement process, and I believe he was also like the day-to-day contact for the Michigan Department of Corrections with Trinity. And actually, I was expecting that to be a poor, like if we received poor feedback when doing the reference checks, I expected it to come from them. And the conversation went better than I expected, and he had positive feedback. He said the working relationship was very positive. The results weren't always what they both wanted, but Trinity was responsive and dealt with them in a professional manner.
Did you
And
forward
only-
that to us?
I absolutely can, yeah.
But you didn't, though.
Oh, I
Or
shared it.
it's, that's not your job, that would be Mrs. Carney's job. The issues in Arizona, did you find those?
Let me see. Let's see. I had an El Paso County Jail.
And again, this isn't, on you.
I'm
But,
not sure if I found the Arizona, but
okay,
I definitely had several.
I didn't see the El Paso, so I guess we're
Gotcha.
even.
Okay.
And again, I don't know where we're at with this, but here's the big umbrella. We got problems in the jail, and we're trying to get good vendors in to provide us good services. And this isn't a reflection on Trinity in any way. But when the council committee that's going to oversee this asks a specific thing and it doesn't get done, and we do a cursory review and find issues that we don't have answers to, there's a problem. And again, I don't think this is Trinity's problem. I think this is the county's problem, not doing due diligence on our side. And had my request been honored, I don't think this conversation would be going on right now. And I'm not certain what the committee wants to do with this, but I'm a little uneasy moving forward on a very important contract that has to get moving, that has to get implemented, and a lot of hard work has been put into this, and I recognize that. But there seems to be a very important piece of this missing, and we'll figure out what to do with that as we talk to the Trinity folks here and find out their background and what they have to say. But I'm very uneasy with having to have this discussion in public when this could have been taken care of in the process.
Regarding your concern about self-reporting, there is language that's in our standard template that OPD puts out for the RFP template that talks about, I'm probably going to butcher how it's, but it states something to the effect of, have you had a contract terminated within the past 5 years?
Yeah.
And the vendors that respond in their proposal have to say yes or no.
That was told, I believe I had that conversation with Mrs. Carney, and I wanted more. I wanted all three to self-report because of where we're at, the unique position we're in, the problems that we faced in the past, and we want to make the right decision going forward. We don't want to have to come back in 2 years and say we made a bad pick or we're just not getting along, it's not working.
And when you say, I guess I'm not understanding either, when you say you wanted all three to self-report, because since that's part of the RFP, then if they're submitting a proposal, so anyone who would have submitted a proposal would have to answer that question. And I know we did ask, once we felt that Trinity, they scored the highest and we were moving forward with them, there was a follow-up meeting where they came in person and we sort of started the contract negotiation process. And I can't remember the exact question that was asked, but we did ask about problems in that meeting, if they would tell us about any issues that they've had. And that's when they offered to send us their 5-year contract. Is it early termination or, and that's when we received that document. And I did also use that when I was looking for potential references to call.
And that was after the fact. That was after Trinity got picked.
Yeah.
My point was, to be fair, that all three should be asked the same question earlier on. And that was not done.
Okay.
And we are where we're at right now. So, thank you. Donna, you want to introduce this gentleman?
This is Steve Slay from the Trinity Food Service. He's the regional VP, and he'll answer any questions you have.
Welcome, sir.
Good morning.
If you have a presentation, feel free to go forward. You
just
heard our conversation just now.
Right. Well, Trinity, most members of Trinity in upper management, we've been in the corrections food service business since the early 80s. There may have been some changes in company names over the years, but Trinity's been in existence for approximately 30 years. They were based out of Florida. There was another company formerly known as Canteen Correctional Services. Those two companies merged together and became just Trinity back in 2012. We're based out of Tampa, and we recently were merged with the Keefe Group, one of the major commissary companies in the United States. And so we also have what you can consider an office in St. Louis. And Eric Sowers, he's here with me from Keefe just because he's local. We have a Strongsville operation that is part of emergency support as needed. But Trinity operates food services in many facilities across the United States, all types, all sizes. We customize those plans to everybody's needs. We don't have a cookie cutter plan that we push down at folks. We have jails as little as 20 inmates, all the way up to large operations such as Arizona Department of Corrections with about 33,000 inmates over the whole state. We also feed Core Civic, all of their locations in the United States, which was formerly CCA, a private contractor. We have large facilities that we manage right now that are similar to the size and complexity of the Cuyahoga operation. Louisville, for example, Metro, that's about 2,300 inmates. We do Nashville, Davidson County, which is also a large population, but it's kind of spread out over a few facilities. There's large facilities, around 2,000. There's a facility in Virginia, Broward County, Florida. That's a very large operation, 2 facilities. So our experience is extensive. The resources that we have are extensive and involve all of those years of experience. You know, I started in 1985, so, and many others have been working that long. So it gives us an understanding of when we see an operation, what we can do, what we recommend to help. The key is for you all is to help you save money through buying power and smarter purchasing. And we use a computerized production system that helps tremendously with controlling the amount of foods that are coming into the house. You know, you don't want too much, you don't want too little. And then the resources above that, in many self-operated facilities across the country, the manager of the operation often does not have anybody above them that they can go to, you know, and there's a support mechanism there that's needed. That would be dietitians, for example. Now, probably there are dietitians available here, but our dietitian, Lori LeClaire, is experienced with corrections for 20-some years. And then purchasing, we're out there looking at purchasing a few years down the road. You know, you have to be reacting to the changes in the economy and get out in front of things so that when we give you a price that's good for a year, you can be comfortable in knowing that we're doing the things in behind the scenes that it's going to take to keep that price stable, but not jeopardize the integrity of the quality of the operation. There's other things such as, you know, human resources and accounting, but it gives, you know, the facility a lot more from people that have been working in the business for a long time. What else? What can I answer? What else?
Say questions, Mr. Brady.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You undoubtedly wouldn't have known that a couple of years ago we went through a long discussion internally about food services, and it was with some differences of opinion over the issue and our perception that we might not be bringing in the quality of food that we would prefer to. But that's another issue, not your company. Just understand that part of the reason that there's that we have these concerns is because we went through this discussion not that long ago.
Right.
And I know that the administration has been looking at this contract for, it sounds like, about 6 months. And I was just wondering if you could tell me, is it true that Trinity Services Group, is that you out of in Lansing, Michigan?
We were awarded the food service in Michigan after.
Did you pay a $2 million penalty?
Well, there was with the Michigan contract, there was a substantial amount of liquidated damage language throughout. And we were penalized there for a variety of reasons. It's very stringent standards.
This article I'm looking at, and it's just an article, Detroit Free Press, but it says that the Florida-based Trinity was penalized $905,000 for unauthorized meal substitutions, $357,000 for delaying servicing meals, $356,000 for inadequate staffing levels, $294,000 for sanitation violations. Aware of that?
I haven't seen that particular. I mean, I'm aware that there were some liquidated damages.
Of an article published in the Prison Legal News, June 2028. It's called a tide of complaints have surfaced around Florida-based Trinity Services Group. You aware of that? By Edward Lyon.
No, not directly.
This article, and I certainly will get a copy of it for you. It references several different complaints around the country in various states that I assume are your business. And we're in a situation where, we couldn't possibly send forward a contract like this today until we understand what these articles are about, and I'm sure you would understand that. And I wish we had our staff took a look at this and found it quite easily and just very, very recently. So this conversation should have taken place, I'm sure, somewhere earlier to find out what these problems were, and if we have, if there's a basis that would explain, what your company's history is and what your defense is for these complaints. I don't assume complaints are valid, but I've got a lot of stuff in front of me, and we have we have this responsibility, and so, Mr. Chairman, I really think that I would advise that, and we'll get some copies of this made if people and the members of the committee haven't seen it. I'm sure, just looking at it for the first time myself this morning, and I would advise, Mr. Chairman, that we hold up this legislation and get to the bottom of this.
Mrs. Conwell.
What's your name again, sir?
Steve Slay.
Mr. Slay. Through the chair to Mr. Slay, was food tasting a part of this contract? Was that in the contract for them to food taste?
Bringing in samples, or?
Right.
No, not at this time.
Okay. And does your company adhere to food allergies or religious dietary laws?
Yes.
Okay. How do you handle complaints if food is said not to be good? What is your process?
Well, if grievances are received, we usually, our food service management on site responds to the grievances within 24 hours. In case, in certain cases, immediate action may be required as well.
Okay. Do staff taste the food at any time?
Yes.
Okay. And staff being the COs or everybody in the jail, or?
Well, whoever's preparing the meals, to make sure it's ready and right before it goes on to the serving line or goes out.
Can I have a couple questions for Donna? Sure. Donna, do you remember what is the cost per the dinner meal spent in the current contract per day, and what it will be spent per meal for dinner with this contract?
The cost per meal, and we never broke it out in breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We just did food purchases and broke it out 3 meals a day by the ADP. And the cost per meal over the years has ranged anywhere from around 79 cents per meal all the way up to, with food costs escalating, if I'm not mistaken, and I can get you this exact number, I have it back in the office, if I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere around almost $2, like $1.75 per meal. But again, that wasn't for dinner. We always just did bulk purchases, 3 meals a day, ADP, so that's how it broke out.
Because I would assume that dinner would cost more than...
Absolutely, I agree with that. But again, because your ADP throughout the day with intake and releases, it fluctuates so much, so we just did a bulk cost per meal per day.
And what was the difference between the 3 bidders for this contract? And what was the difference, and why did you go with Trinity?
Well, with Aramark, nobody seemed to like the Aramark. Aramark was a very cookie cutter proposal. It just was. It was quite obvious to all of us that it was just, I think, a proposal they probably give to a lot of different people who are looking for a food service vendor. And then with Summit and with Trinity, it came down to, because those were the only other two, it came down, number one, to price. and Trinity was a better price. And then, I'm trying to go back and remember the scoring.
See, that's why I'm concerned. If it came down to two vendors,
We
you
actually,
know, in procurement, we have not always the best price, the best.
we actually weren't able to score the pricing across the board because only one vendor followed what we requested in the RFP. The RFP requested that they quote 3 hot meals a day. Aramark, their proposal was for 2 hot meals and a cold. We asked for pricing for 3 years or 5 years, and Trinity had only provided us the first year pricing and wanted further discussions in order to project out the pricing. So by default, Summit actually got the highest score on pricing and they were the highest priced, but they got the highest score on pricing because we were unable to score the other 2.
They were the highest price, but they got the highest score because they provided what the RFP asked for, if that makes sense. But they were also the highest price. But there was a reason. What was the reason that we didn't like the Summit? I know there were some other reasons though.
We just felt that they were, their bread and butter, their specialty is more hospitality and healthcare. And the language in their proposal was very much written that way. And Trinity's obviously they're in only jail. food
Correctional.
service- Yeah, correctional food services.
Okay, so could you provide that to the committee?
Like the
You know,
group
the
scoring
scoring and how you did that. So I'm concerned with, so Trinity has a history of being in this kind of service. Aramark and Summit does not.
Correct. Aramark and Summit were more, like she said, leaning more towards like hospitality, restaurants or like the Q or things like that. They're more in places like that. And again, Aramark, and we all said this about Aramark, it was just a basic cookie cutter proposal. You could just tell it was. Trinity, I will say, they put a lot of time and effort into their proposal, and they really narrowed it down. Where Trinity was lacking was in the pricing that they gave us. But then we did contact them, and then they came back and gave us what we were asking for, because we liked everything else about them, and we liked their 1-year price that they gave us. It was the best price, but it was only 1 year, and we had asked for 5 years.
I think that in the history and what we've experienced recently with the jails, I mean, of course, we're all concerned with price, but that wasn't the only
Correct.
main concern. It was also making sure that people had decent, healthy meals that any of us would want to eat. I'll ask the gentleman again. So we're looking for efficiency in the county, but we also want good quality. So I had brought up a conversation because we also have other issues in the home, some of the homeless meals that are being served by private contractors. And so I had some discussions with the director of homeless services about, you know, since this was a big contract, would there be some kind of way that we could offer, you know, and see if your company did homeless services as well? Could you share a little bit about if your organization serves homeless and other different types, just name the different types of facilities that your company also serves?
Sure. We specialize in corrections, but sometimes the agency has needs in other areas that sort of relate to the corrections. In Raleigh, North Carolina, we have had the South Wilmington Street homeless shelter contract for probably about 10 years now.
What is it called?
South Wilmington Street Center.
Wilmington?
South Wilmington, yeah,
Okay.
Wilmington. And we started that. They were looking for help. Same thing, controlling costs and inventory, getting some improved efficiencies in the kitchen. So that was a very successful transition and operation that's been going on. I mean, if you check with them, I think they will tell you that it works out very well for them. They have congregate feeding where the homeless come in through a line, and then, it's also possible to send, you have those small trays with a sealer machine, and you just seal the trays and put them in a thermal pack, and they can go and be delivered as well. It kind of also relates into Meals on Wheels. We have several facilities that service Meals on Wheels programs. A lot of that has to do with the fact that in rural areas or certain other areas, even if it's in a city, the correctional facility kitchen might be one of the nicest kitchens in the area and not private. So sometimes the agencies ask us to do an analysis and see if we can extend our services out to these other areas. So Meals on Wheels, we do plenty of those as far as bulk foods or prepared trays that are transported either to facilities or pickup locations where drivers will meet our person and then take those trays and go somewhere else. Everything needs to be custom designed, so whatever your situation is here, I would like to do an analysis of that to give you a better idea of what the best solution is. Sometimes it might not be the jail kitchen. There's other options for that. If there's a kitchen available somewhere, sometimes, like if a business has closed, it might be something to take over that building with the existing and invest a little bit of money to get it running, and then run the program out of that.
Do you hire the managers that are going back to just the prison setting? Do you hire the managers that are over the food distribution?
We do.
Okay, and I'm just worried about. I know sometimes a company can be real good, and their intentions and their mission is good, and then there's people that are inside those institutions that kind of give it a bad rep sometimes. So, but what is the mindset of your company in terms of serving? You've laid out that you specialize in corrections, but you also have homeless and you do Meals on Wheels. To me, that is pretty much a range of individuals that could be low income.
Correct.
What is the mindset of your company in terms of serving low-income individuals?
Well, the menus are prepared by our dietitians and to meet nutritional standards first. We always share our menus with the client and ask them to provide their input, because we want to make sure that we're meeting the expectations of not only the end user, but you as the client. So feedback initially is needed mainly to determine pricing, because if you decided you wanted to serve a 8-ounce ground beef patty for a meal, we just have to make sure that we know what the right products are to inject into the menu so we have accurate cost. And then from there, once you start running, after a few months, you can feedback from surveys, and just in general, we work together with our clients to make menu changes with variety or the quality of a product as needed, and that can be up or down. We have some very good ideas that, like a dairy drink I put in the proposal, which is like a Carnation Instant Breakfast. You can serve that for breakfast, and it's got more nutrients than milk. It's less expensive, and vanilla and chocolate. It's very well liked. So you have 3 wins there. So each year we built in for 5 years pricing. We really don't know what's going to happen with the market, so we guesstimate 2.5% as a CPI type of oriented price structure for going forward. But we really don't know what it's going to be. We would prefer to offset that 2.5% if possible, and say, listen, we've noticed some things since we've been in here. We don't need CPI. If we just make these couple of menu changes, that saves the money, and there's no need to change your price. So we're always trying to work out front to continually monitor and provide that perfect match of what you expect, what you want to give the end user, and then balancing that with price and service.
Okay, so when you say what we want to give the end user, you're referring to the county or
Yes.
the customer. And so you can clearly hear from all of us today that just not concerned with price, we also want some
Right.
quality and good. So my last question, because I know others want to ask, are the dietitians that you mentioned, are they licensed? What are they
Yes.
credentialed with?
Yeah, they're licensed in Ohio. I think the credentials probably were in the proposal, but if not, they can easily be,
I didn't see the contract, so.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, my question, if I may, is Ms. Khalil?
Is he here?
Donna.
Yeah. Oh, I think I meant our Khalil.
We always call her Donna.
Yeah, yes. My question is, given that this is a new thing and particularly the reports that have surfaced that we're discussing, you know, we have this tried and true thing that we do around here where we do a contract for a relatively short time with the option for a couple of extensions. And I'm just wondering why we didn't come up with something like that rather than doing a straight 5-year contract.
If I'm not mistaken, when we started discussions on this, and I don't even remember, I just know when we started discussions, we said we're going to do it for 5 years, but we wanted to make sure we had plenty of out clauses in there. And I'm trying to go back and discuss and remember, because I know we were talking about 3 years. 3 was the minimum we were talking about, only because we didn't want to do like a 1 year with an option. And if that's the route you want to go, we can always go in that direction. But again, we figured it was going to probably take any vendor a good year just to really get up and running. So we were first thinking about 3 years, but then we opted for the 5 year. And I know that was a group discussion, but I can't really give you a good solid answer as to why. Now, if that's something that council would be more comfortable considering, we could probably always go back and renegotiate and do something like that for a 1 year, and then with an option for, renewed for another couple of years, something like that.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Khalil, at this point, I'm not ready to make a recommendation. I was just asking about why that approach wasn't taken for informational purposes at this time. Thank you.
And again, I know we talked about the term, and as a group consensus, we came up, it was a 5 year, but I don't know if Brandy or anybody can remember. I thought Brandy walked in.
She is.
Yeah.
Termination rights.
Right, we made sure there was plenty of out clauses and termination and things like that in there. But do you remember why we came up with 5 years, what the final, no? And again, I know we discussed it was 3, 5, but then we opted for the 5.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Khalil, if we were to do a shorter contract because of the startup time, I would certainly start with at least a 2-year contract.
A 2 year?
Yeah, but I think we need more information. I'm just putting this out as an alternative for consideration at this time. Thank you.
If that's something we could negotiate with, we
Let
could
the
sit on
record
with
reflect
Trinity.
Mr. Tuma has arrived. I see Mrs. Carney's here, but I think what we'll do is we're going to hold this for 2 weeks. We'll submit our concerns to Mr. Slay's organization to be fair and let him answer in writing, and we'll be back here in 2 weeks to see where we're at. But I would anticipate before the 2 weeks are up, we will have sufficient answers to quash any concerns that we may have. I've heard actually one thing during your testimony that has me a little concerned, but I'll talk to you about that a little bit later. Does anyone have any concerns with holding this for 2 weeks? I have not heard that. So if everyone's okay with that, we'll hold this for 2 weeks. We will submit our concerns to you, sir, so you have an opportunity to answer those, and we'll be back here in 2 weeks.
Very good. And I will forward their emails to you.
Fair enough. Anything else? Anybody have anything else? Any miscellaneous? Thank you.
Thank you.